Well, welcome to a very special edition of World Panorama. I'm Ishan Russell, and today this edition is special because we're going to be discussing the US elections and how they've panned out till now and the big stories that have been happening from the US this week. First up, the headlines. Latest polls show Republican nominee Donald Trump losing ground in 3 crucial states ahead of the November 8th general election against Democrat Hillary Clinton. Trump backs away from comments calling President Barack Obama and Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton founders of the ISIS, but his party struggles to rally behind him. And 50 Republican security experts come out openly against Trump. The group that includes veterans from Nixon to Bush administrations says the party nominee is unfit to be Commander-in-Chief of the United States. Right, so we have special guests that are joining us in the studio to discuss what's been happening in the United States. But first, let's set it up for you. The race for the US presidency seems to be tilting towards the Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton as of now. Opinion polls have started showing Hillary extending her lead against her Republican rival Donald Trump. Commentators are already speculating on what could be the decisive turns of the Trump campaign that could eventually spell defeat for him.
Ahead of the US elections in November, opinion polls are shifting the momentum behind Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. 4 latest polls show that Republican nominee Donald Trump has lost ground in 3 crucial states ahead of the November 8th general election against Clinton.
As president, I will stand up to China and anyone else who tries to take advantage of American workers and companies. And I'm going to ramp up enforcement by appointing, for the first time, a chief trade prosecutor. I will triple the number of enforcement officers, and when countries break the rules, we won't hesitate to impose targeted tariffs.
Trump is certainly not helping his cause with his unfiltered speaking style that has repeatedly landed him in hot water. In the latest incident, Trump on Friday told rallies in Altoona and Erie that his remarks earlier this week calling Obama and Clinton the founders of ISIS, as Islamic State is also known, had been sarcastic.
It's like I told you about, sarcastically. I mean, you had to see these news organizations yesterday. When I said Obama, right? Did you see that? That Obama is the founder of ISIS. He's the MVP. They're going to be giving him the MVP award, and she's right there next to him. And you had to see, and they left the MVP stuff out because then you'd know. But you had to hear, did he mean it? What does it mean? We have 9 panelists tonight.
In a surprise appearance, Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus, who in private expressed fury over some of Trump's actions earlier this month, introduced the candidate at campaign events in Erie and Altoona, Pennsylvania, where the two shook hands on stage.
Now, speaking of regulation, before I speak of regulation, Reince, I want to thank you. Where's Reince? What a great guy. Reince, get over here, Reince. He has done, thank you very much. Reince has done such an amazing job, and they portrayed him slightly inaccurately. Reince, come here for a second, please.
Trump went on to blame the media for blowing out of proportion what had been a sarcastic comment. Trump first made the unfounded claim on Wednesday and repeated it through the week.
And we have to call up law enforcement, and we have to have the sheriffs and the police chiefs and everybody watching, because if we get cheated out of this election, if we get cheated out of a win in Pennsylvania, which is such a vital state, especially when I know what's happening here, folks. I know she can't beat what's happening here. The only way they can beat it, in my opinion, and I mean this 100%, if in certain sections of the state they cheat, okay?
Nearly 1/5 of registered Republicans now want Trump to drop out of the race for the White House, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll released on Wednesday. Trump has been mired in repeated controversies in recent days. He drew heavy criticism after he suggested gun rights activists could take action against Clinton, a statement he later said was aimed at rallying votes against her. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
So to discuss who's edging ahead in this American election campaign, I'm joined by Professor Christopher S. Raj, former Dean of the School of International Studies, JNU, and also Pramit Pal Chaudhary, Foreign Affairs Editor of Hindustan Times, joins us. Pramit, I'll start with you. Is it too early to call it? Opinion polls are certainly saying that Hillary Clinton is ahead, but is Trump's campaign losing momentum?
It's clearly losing momentum. However, it's still way too early to be able to say that Hillary has it in the bag. If you remember Michael Dukakis running against George Bush Sr., at this point in his campaign, Dukakis was 17 points ahead of Bush, and he lost. So it's still very close. Hillary is still only 5 or 6 percentage points ahead of Trump right now. And the initial bump that she got from the convention is now starting to flatten a bit. Trump, however, has not helped his cause. He's made some, as he's mentioned earlier, some bizarre statements. And some of his battles with the Republican Party have cost him heavily.
Right.
So he hasn't gained anything very much, but 6 percentage points, which is what Clinton's lead right now is on average, is still very, very small and still not enough for Hillary to be certain that she'll win this election. But it's her advantage right now, very clearly, and it would take something very major, either a major mistake on her part or a major, let's say, terrorist attack to be able to shift the momentum back into Trump's camp.
All right, Professor Raj, how would you call it? Right now, a lot of mistakes in the Trump camp, and that has led to problems within the Republican Party in terms of full support for him. Do you think that's the problem that's facing Trump right now? And this was an eventuality, really, with the way the campaign was going.
Well, to start with, one, as he was saying, it is difficult to how Trump will lose it. He won against 17, primary contester for the presidential nomination. He won it, and he had a full support of the Republicans at that point of time. But now, as various polls, 3 polls as media you can watch, that is, one is Real Clear Politics, which really is putting a good assessment, .com of the United States. How in each state, as it was mentioned, three states already, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, is Maine, which is very important state he had. The senator from Maine, Susan Collins, has moved out. She's a Republican, moved in support. So this being the background of poll, but overall what? Overall, you have Hillary Clinton, who is an experienced candidate, Washington insider. She had been in the policy process. Then she's the first woman lady standing for election. Obama was also first black president. So all the first are there with her. But the larger debate is the way Trump is moving ahead in his campaign speeches. The clear, poll says, reality poll says that Trump is not even investing anything on advertisement since the primary conventions were over.
Right.
By now, Hillary has put in $49 million on it. So this is what she is doing. Secondly thing is that while she is doing all this, you found, as the previous analyst has said, Trump is making statement which is against him, do not contribute. That is one aspect we need to...
He seems to be losing support, and I want to play out a story before we move further in this discussion about what Trump has been doing, because the opinion polls are revealing another development about him, that he retains his appeal among the white working class. The margins, though, are falling. Another telling remark on his outburst that have even triggered a stunning denunciation from President Barack Obama, almost a rare occasion when a sitting president has criticized his opposition party's candidate.
As the race to the White House gathers steam, Republican Party nominee Donald Trump is not holding in his punches.
You know, I like the Hillary protesters. You know why? They're so nice and quiet.
But soon came the embarrassment for his party that morphed into outrage.
If she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know.
The not-so-veiled quip was interrupted as Trump suggesting that the use of guns might be a way to stop his rival Hillary, something which even drew the attention of US Secret Service.
From the beginning. And we have to call up law enforcement, and we have to have the sheriffs and the police chiefs and everybody watching.
Trump's campaign is floundering in what could be seen as a blow, even in perception. 50 top Republican national security experts came out openly against him. The group included the veterans from Nixon to Bush administrations, even a former CIA director. In an open letter signed by the group, they said, "None of us will vote for Donald Trump. From a foreign policy perspective, Trump is not qualified to be a president and commander-in-chief. We are convinced he would be a dangerous president and put at risk our country's national security and well-being." But the anxiety of his own partymen has not moved Trump to mend his ways. The tone and verbosity remained bellicose.
When people like me, I like them. Even Putin, you know, Putin, they want me to disavow Putin. Putin of Russia, he said Trump is a genius, he'll be the next leader. Don't worry, he's not getting anything. But, you know, they wanted me to disavow the statement. He said Trump is a genius, he'll be the next leader of the United States.
With Donald Trump's campaign, fireworks are never shot. But perhaps they are starting to show the smoke in his party's own backyard. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Professor Christopher S. Raj and Pramit Pal Chaudhary are with me on this show tonight discussing the US elections. Pramit, we just heard that support for Trump from within the Republican Party is slowly falling apart. I remember a few months ago you were on the show and we were talking about the importance of the Jacksonian Democrats and others who would form that core base of Trump. Is that base intact and is he managing to get any kind of support from anywhere else?
Well, that's I think his support with the Jacksonian Democrats remains still very strong. I mean, that's the reason why he's still getting over 40% in the polls. The problem, as you've mentioned, is that he's not getting anybody else to support him. But I don't think that Trump actually cares. Trump's entire strategy seems to be that if I can get the white working class, which is still by far the largest chunk of the vote, to come out in very large numbers, I can compensate for the fact that the minorities and college-educated whites and a slightly larger proportion of white women are voting for Clinton. But his strategy is turnout. I need to get my white working class base to come out in very high numbers, let's say 70, 80%. So in many ways, he deliberately tries to make provocative statements. He tries to get people, the liberal elites, as he calls them in the New York Times or something, to attack him because he wants his base to get angry and come out and vote in extraordinarily large numbers. So that's his entire strategy. So he doesn't attempt to increase his base at all.
Right.
But that Jacksonian Democrats are still with him, and that hasn't changed yet.
All right, Professor Raj, another interesting comparison. I mean, it's rather ironic that when Obama ran for president in the first term, the message was change and hope. Ironically, this time around, Trump is also talking about a very similar message, that he's a departure from conventional politics, and therefore this appeal that he has with the white working class, as Pramit was saying.
Well, to some extent, I share the views expressed by Mr. Chaudhary. But the main thing is the statistic says that during McCain, when he stood for a election campaign against Obama, he had the support of almost 90% white people, the white ladies, the white Americans with them, and plus the other groups with them. So he could proceed there. Now, the details are now quite clear that white women have come down out of 90% of the white men to 73. And as he had also mentioned, the educated white are not with him. Now they just are different. Now, when I looked at Real Politics, their assessment, even the mother and family group are also falling out. So as he rightly said, he makes statement and it is projected wrong by the media. So you anger a group, but statistically, what you have 10% voting rights for the blacks. Out of the 17 million, you have Hispanics, Latinos. 12 million can vote, and they will not vote. And slowly, swing states like Florida is coming on the side of Clinton. So these are some of the direction. Although, unless Hillary Clinton makes a major failures, two areas where it can affect her: her decision on Benghazi episode. Second, her own emails inside the conventional party, which has been come out by the man WikiLeaks done. So these things have come out, it may go against her. But by and large, she has proved herself to be working. Her advisors, as she said, the economic policy which, Detroit on Monday, he announced in Detroit. Once again, you found the tax bracket is 25, and he is reducing the big group from 15 to 35 to 15. Then he have built up a structure, tax structure. So these are not very encouraging. I don't know how the group unemployment is 5% now. How this group now, as I was listening to your TV program announcement, that even Clinton says, Mrs. Hillary Clinton says, I will deal with China. How best we can deal with China is a major issue.
Right. So it's a point about a strong leader, and I want to discuss this issue with both of you. Pramit, I'll start with you. As far as the identity of a strong leader is concerned, that image that Trump has been going for versus Hillary, who's been saying, as Professor Raj and I were talking about in the break also, has been saying that we'll do it together. Now, in a sense, does it come down to that, an authoritarian president versus a president that is almost a consensus kind of a candidate?
Actually, there have been political science studies that indicate that those voters who admire authoritarian political leaders are the ones most likely to vote for Trump. And in some areas, Trump is still seen as being more effective than Hillary. Unfortunately, one of them happens to be terrorism, where Hillary continues to be slightly behind Trump when American voters are asked who would be most effective against a terrorist organization. So Hillary continues to have a problem on that front. But I think Hillary, while she, as has been mentioned, she has a much more experience as government. Her problem is that she is seen as untrustworthy, that her standing as a member of the Washington establishment, the various scandals that have dogged her entire political life, these continue to mean that her unfavorability ratings are surprisingly high for somebody of such experience.
Right, Professor Raj, your comment.
So a lot of, even among the Democratic Party,
Sorry, Pramit, I'll just let Professor continue, then we'll come back to you.
From the academic point of view, we teach how the role of the president's foreign policy making and domestic policy making. Over the years, there are scholars, the American scholars have said, there is what you call imperial presidency, beginning with Delano Roosevelt, FDR Roosevelt, and the man who Arthur Schlesinger came out with the terminology, there is an imperial president profile emerging in the American context. Now, today, that, when after Carter and especially after Reagan, the imperial presidency was lost and then consensus president emerged. But when 9/11 took place, once again the same writers, Kennedy, Paul Kennedy, and the eagle is flying, the imperial presidency is returned. So what difference between this imperial presidency and the expectation of authoritarian? The American imperial presidency, when we examine, especially move closer to our own thinking, like President Bush, you found he was said, I make decisions. He had a strong executive with them, strong defense secretary, strong national security advisor. All were together, made a decision, intervention in Iraq, which has been criticized, intervention in Afghanistan, it has been criticized. But the withdrawals that was made during Obama administration is also a subject of evaluation. Now, presidential nominee says, I will do all these things, and people are afraid a president who is not imperial president, but there are structures in which he is not aware of, how far he will take the advice. The main debate that goes on in America is the man has the nuclear weapons in hand. He says, I will use nuclear weapons also. Yeah. So these are statements. Is he frightening people or is he going to do that? Second things is the imperial presidency, though, has been the major formulation of George Bush, yet in carrying out the policy with the allies, like the European allies, the Americans were together, although they did not support him on Iraq issue. Right. But here, he says NATO people are burden sharing. Yeah,
even not, Japan he's hit out at.
So burden sharing is not. He says Japan can have nuclear weapons, but slowly you found that his policy is more towards authoritarianism, not based on an imperial presidency where there is a concept called president is the ultimate decision maker. Okay. You may be decided, maybe he will listen, but ultimately he will make the decision. But that is not happening with this fellow. Right, I mean, in the academic
that is where he wants to be, I guess. But on that note, we're running out of time. Final comments, Pramit, very quickly, I'll come to you. Too early to call right now. Is it Hillary's to lose or can Trump still make it?
I think it's Hillary's to lose. The American voting system is based on an electoral college system, which means that in fact you're actually running 50 small little elections. And it's very important for you to be able to spread your vote across all these states, because each state has a specific number of electoral college votes. There's only 5 or 6 swing states that now are going to determine which direction the electoral college vote will go. Hillary has the clear advantage, and Trump's slightly bizarre campaign has meant that some states, like notably Pennsylvania, which was a swing state earlier, has now very clearly shifted into Hillary's camp. Ohio and Michigan, the other 2 northern Midwestern states that are swing, are slowly also moving in her way. Georgia, Florida remain with Trump, but only by a very thin margin. But if you put it all together, Hillary has a clear advantage in electoral college votes. So as I've said, barring a major error by her, she should be able to win without any problems.
All right, and Professor Raj, one final word from you very quickly. The fault lines that have been exposed in American society with this kind of the nature of the campaign that it has been, do you think post-November 8th everything can be reset back to normal, or the fault lines now will be more open?
See, the main challenge which we have not addressed, even the Republican Party is thinking, members are thinking to abandon Trump and save the party to win congressional election in the House and Senate. So that in a way would restore their party's position, which is also weakening. With this man, he was a Democrat some years back. Suddenly he entered Republican thing, and he's not a Republican by nature. So the Democratic Party movement has already started to save the party. So that also need to be looked into while assessing that the party wants to save, while at the same time they are not in a position to wholeheartedly support Trump. So this is an irony that he is facing, and unfortunately he has created this irony for himself rather than the forces were moving in this direction. Last but not, as Mr. Chowdhury was mentioning, as of today, 256, electoral college votes have said it will go for her. Out of 270, if she gets 270, she will be in the White House.
All right.
So that is where it is. Still, it is a touch and go, I won't say, but majority is on her side.
So it's advantage Hillary for now. Let's see what happens on the 8th of November. Pramit Pal Chaudhary and Professor Raj, thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand and give us such great perspective on the American elections. Well, that's it in World Panorama this week. We'll be back next week with all the news from the world.